Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and welcome to my discussion on the update 2.9 notes. Now, for those of you that know me, every time the update comes out, I like to post a video talking about the update notes and what it could mean for heroes, what it could mean for a variety of things, including the meta. There is a lot of update notes to get through on this particular update. 2.9 had so many changes, new items, massive changes to the game in general. So I'm going to try and go through it at a fairly quick pace. So if you struggle to keep up, I apologize. Just have to rewatch some parts of it. Let's start with the crystal item changes because that's the first in the update notes. We're not going to talk about Churnwalker because we've already talked about him in the last video that I did. So let's just talk about the actual update notes themselves. So starting with Clockwork. Clockwork essentially has now become a jack-of-all-trades item. It gives you just a little bit of everything. And the passive is that you reduce all cooldowns by 7.5%. That's 7.5% of their total current cooldown, I believe. Every 2 seconds, meaning that the longer your cooldowns are, the more effectiveness you're going to get out of this. So the likes of Celestine's Scarf, not going to be great for their heliogenesis. You might get them off cooldown a bit quicker, but with a 35% cooldown reduction, they were pretty close to 1 second anyway. But your core collapse, your goop are going to come off cooldown more quickly, and your ultimates will be coming off cooldown more quickly too. But this is pretty good for the CP carries that had longer cooldowns in the first place. For instance, Taka is going to love this. CP Taka with a Clockwork, that's going to be pretty goddamn difficult to deal with. So think about it like this way. It's really, really good for those kind of spammy CP heroes with longer cooldowns like their ultimates. Or it's going to be very, very good for CP heroes that have got long cooldowns in general, and they often use their abilities to damage people. So this is a pretty good item pickup for pretty much most CP carries in the game, depending on where you want to use it. CP Alpha, I think, could make a good use out of this as well. So in general, just a very good versatile item. Frostburn. Now, they've basically, I think, taken the scaling part of Frostburn out. They've nerfed the overall crystal power. Which means that it's now more of a utility item, because to be completely fair, a lot of people built Frostburn as a standard without really having it as a utility item because it was just easier to get to than Shatterglass, still gave you 100 CP, and the passive was pretty good. Now you've got 30% slow for 1 second. I don't know what the cooldown timer is on it. There was an internal cooldown timer on the old Frostburn. We'll have to see whether there is on this one. It doesn't say in the update notes itself. And the crystal power got nerfed by 15. Not a huge hit, but enough to maybe make you reconsider Frostburn as a first item on every single CP carry that you end up going, and definitely makes it a bit more of a utility item that you might pick up later in your build. This is the interesting one, Broken Myth. The crystal power at 80, shield pierce now at 30%. Now, let me explain how pierce has changed. Pierce now is not a percentage of your damage going through as true damage. So 30 shield pierce would have been bloody broken on the old shield pierce mechanic, because that would have been 30% of your damage going through as true damage. No, what I think it now means is that you have 30% piercing of the enemy's shield. So all of your damage deals through 30% lower of your enemy's shield. So imagine your enemy has got 100 shield. With 30% shield pierce, you'd be taking 30 shielding off, and your damage would be going through at 70 shield. So I'm going to do some maths on this probably tomorrow or Friday. I'm going to compare the old piercing and the new piercing, and on Tension Bow, Bonesaw, Broken Myth, and have a look at all of them and see how different it is. But I have a feeling that in general, you are going to see a slight decrease in the efficiency and efficacy of pierce. So it means you're just not going to be doing quite as much damage, I think, when people actually build defenses against you, which I think, again, is probably a good thing. New items. Dragon's Eye. 85 crystal power, the same as Frostburn. It's slightly more expensive to build, 200 more expensive to build. You get 35% cooldown in it, and you gain 20 crystal power for each second you are damaging enemy heroes. Now, it says that it's supposed to be for heroes that like to get in there and stay in there, so things like Taka. But also, it's very, very good for the likes of Celeste. We know when Celeste got Clockwork on her previous build that she'd have roughly 1 second cooldown on her Heliogenesis, which means if you are able to consistently hit your Heliogenesis, you're going to be scaling up pretty gosh darn hard with Dragon's Eye. But if you have a sort of an ability like Scarf, or it's a sort of a longer cooldown on Spitfire, you might not be able to get as much use out of this. However, if you're able to land Goops, then obviously that you are. And I think the burning also maybe applies to it. So again, it rewards you if you hit skill shots. It's also good for those heroes that want to build a little bit more tanky. But think of it like Broken Myth. But Broken Myth for people who have got better scaling on their abilities. Broken Myth was better for heroes that had in total CP values on their abilities high. So I'm talking about the likes of high base damages combined with a decent CP ratio. This is purely good for good CP ratio heroes. And for instance, people who build this on Rhyme, whilst Rhyme doesn't have great CP ratios, he does like to stay in the fight quite often. And also you're going to get massive amounts of sustain coming through with Rhyme on this build. So this is just a generally, again, a good item that I think is going to be used by quite a few carries. But I don't know, because of the 85 crystal power, you know, you've still got to basically be, well, you've got to get how many stacks? Shattered Glass is 150 crystal power, so you need 4 stacks to get it above. You need 4 stacks to get it above Shattered Glass, and then obviously maintain those stacks. So there is a bit of an investment to make it better than Shattered Glass, but you do have the 35% cooldown added to it as well, which again I think is going to make it probably a bit more attractive in general. Let's have a look at this. Spellfire. Lots of things building out of Heavy Prism and Eclipse Prism, by the way. So you've got a lot of versatility in your builds. It also means that when you see people building this, you're not going to be quite sure what they're going, which I think adds a little bit more allure and also, you know, a bit more guesswork in Vainglory, which I think is also good as well. So this is total cost 2700. It's a little bit like the Frostburn. 90 crystal power, so not a bad amount of crystal power, and abilities dealing crystal damage to enemies. Deal 100% of your crystal power as bonus damage over 4 seconds. So 25% of your crystal power per second. I mean, if you build this in a heavy CP build, then you have a poke composition, that's actually going to be quite difficult for the enemy to deal with. That's going to be, you know, a lot of damage consistently. Think about Celeste's range. If she hits an extended Heliogenesis on you, and she's got this plus a hell of a lot of other items to increase her CP, you know, you're going to be taking, let's say an average CP of 300. So you're going to be taking, you know, a good 75 crystal damage every second after that, and then, you know, every time they do it, they're going to refresh it. So this can be quite obnoxious to deal with. Again, I think these items, it's difficult to tell where they're going to come out on the meta. I think a lot of builds are going to get tested, but you can imagine this being quite difficult to deal with from very long range CP carries. I don't know how good it's going to be on sort of melee or burst type CP carries like Tackle or Alpha, but I think it's going to be better on those ranged CP carries, definitely. Baron skins, yeah, we don't care about skins. Skins are cool, obviously, but they don't help your gameplay, so I'm not interested. Hero vision radius increased by 50%. This is going to be very odd, because now you're going to be able to sort of... I never really thought vision radius was an issue, but again, just extending vision radius, it means you're able to see a little bit more on the map. Also, escaping enemy heroes is going to be a lot harder now, especially if you're getting chased down by someone who does pick up a Frostburn. It's going to be a lot harder to escape them now. They're going to have that extra little bit of range to add to their sort of chase. Basic attacks will reveal the target to defender for 2.2 seconds. They will not reveal the defender. So if you're attacking someone from a brush now, you're going to get revealed for 2.2 seconds, which means, you know, you're going to probably receive some sort of retaliation. You'll have to be a little bit more careful about where you choose to attack. So basic attacks, ability damage will both reveal the attacker and the defender. So if you're just spamming Spitfires from or spamming Heliogenesis from a brush, you're going to be revealed, which is very interesting, because now it means there's a bit more counterplay. Obviously, then you're also going to reveal the enemy, so that also basically almost acts like everybody's now almost got Celeste's ability on her Heliogenesis, where you're going to reveal someone if you hit them. So yeah, this is interesting. It means that you can't consistently spam things from range without being revealed now. I like that. It also means, for instance, if you're playing against a Scarf or something like Attacker and you get hit, but the Scarf is out of range and you can't quite see where he's coming from. If you get hit by a Spitfire in the middle of a fight, you can instantly X-Retsu the Scarf because he's going to get revealed. So it means, again, later game carries, long range carries are going to have to be a bit more careful about their positioning and be aware now that they're instantly going to get revealed once they hit someone with an ability. So that's good. That's interesting. Doesn't impede stealth as well. Damage normalization, basically making, you know, some abilities had a specific ratio for minions, basically making that if they had that specific ratio, they're just going to have 50% less damage to minions. I'm not going to go into the details of this, but basically I think in general, it means that people who were clearing waves quickly are going to clear them slightly less quickly, and people who weren't clearing waves quickly are going to clear them a bit more quickly. Experience share, and something that you'll see here, guys, they're buffing all the experience share up, which is interesting because I think they're trying to, and what you'll notice across this, I think they're trying to increase the pace of the game again. They're trying to basically speed up Vainglory games, because I think there was a point last year where Vainglory games would take sort of 10 to 15 minutes on average. They're now getting to the point where you're taking 15 to 20 minutes on average. And I think, in general, that's a bad thing for mobile games. So I think they're trying to increase the pace of the mobile game, or increase the pace of Vainglory a little bit more. So again, this is the piercing changes that we talked about. Lifesteal is now all just lifesteal instead of the separated lifesteal. Piercing will no longer be effective. Yeah, so basically, it's essentially piercing is shredding or ignoring a percentage of the defenses. They're a bit like pierce or armor piercing and sort of magic resist piercing happens in League of Legends. That's basically what's now happening in Vainglory. And you'll notice that a lot of the items have had their armor and shielding nerfed just to try and compensate for this. But in general, you're going to see that piercing will be less effective than it was in the previous update, and will be more of a utility pick, because people were building Tension Bow and Bonesaw even though they weren't facing up against much armor and stuff. So this is basically again making piercing a bit more of a utility choice and less of just saying YOLO, I'm going to buy it because base armor's pretty high and they've got a coat of plates. Kraken, again, base health decreased by 20%, but the captured Kraken base health increased by 20%, and you get a minion wave when you spawn Kraken as well. So basically, Kraken is now more of a game ender. You take Kraken, you're more likely to end the game with it. So that's really interesting. Again, leans towards SEMC wanting to increase the pace of the game. Jungle Sentry, it means essentially what this is doing is essentially saying that those cruels that would sometimes go into your jungle with a Storm Crown and just solo your Crystal Sentry, going to be harder for them to do that now. It's more of an objective that you have to take as a team. And again, making it more likely that you take turrets and more likely that you take the gold miner. Again, trying to increase the pace of the game, which is really interesting. Global energy recharge bonuses basically means that you get a bit more energy back once you've spent it. So CP or ability users that spam energy are going to be a bit more rewarded on this update. Right, let's get through to hero changes, because, oh my goodness, we're 13 minutes in and we've only got through the first part. I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's have a look. Adagio's attack speed raise. This is essentially, I don't know if you've seen recent pro play, but essentially Adagio has been playing a little bit as weapon power, so this is going to make his weapon power build path a bit more likable at the end of the game. You'll see that a lot of heroes' base shielding and armor has been nerfed by a considerable amount. That's to make sort of luen the changes of the shielding and the piercing changes. So you'll notice that a lot of heroes have had their base armor and shielding nerfed, but their health has been increased. So in general, they're trying to make heroes a bit tankier. So you're getting a big health increase on most. I'm going to skip over this on most heroes, but basically everyone's getting a bit tankier, but their resistances are going down because piercing has been changed. Healing ratio changed from 10% to 12%. Additional tick of damage on application, and is now considered ability damage. So that basically is for the change on. Well, I don't know why that would have been interesting if the ability damage thing from Broken Myth was still the same, but it's not. So I guess whatever. An additional attack of damage on application. So that's just a bit more damage over time. That's pretty nice if you want to play CP Adagio. Fortified health increased, makes you a bit tankier when you choose to channel that. That's fine. Captain Adagios will definitely love that, as will CP Adagios. Infinite Rebuff health has gone up because of the health there. Energy to reboot gone from 50% to 65%. Okay, whatever. This is basically saying you're a bit tankier when you go into infinite reboot. Prime directive cooldown's gone down, and that's pretty awesome because that was one of Alpha's main gap closing abilities, so that 1 second off might be making her a bit more viable. We might see her decrease to 2%, healing stack gone from that. Essentially, they're trying to push weapon power alpha a bit here. As you can see, they really want to sort of get the spell sword working with weapon power alpha. I don't think spell sword's been as popular as it should have been, so they're just trying to push weapon power alpha a bit here. And with the prime directive nerf changes, the buffs there, you might see a little bit more weapon power alpha. Definitely trying to make her a bit more viable. Extended team fights really favor weapon power alpha, so we might see some of her. Vanguard barrier has gone up, I think, to compensate for the health changes, because you want to make barriers more impactful, and you can see the health ratio's gone up as well. So Arden's going to be a bit beefier. And he's just trying to shield a bit more in terms of HP. Blood for blood damage. I mean, if you're Tasty Bacon, you're going to be happy about One Punch Arden coming back. But yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a nice change. 50 damage at the late game can make or break a kill, I suppose. But for me, we're more concerned about the Vanguard changes, just trying to make him a bit more impactful when he uses his shield. Let's have a look. Let's see ability damage. This is just some change. This is just some basic standard changes to compensate for the health changes. We're not going to talk about that too much. Again, these are more just health changes. Faint of Heart now deals bonus crystal damage, execute damage decreased from basically making this is nerfing weapon power Blackfeather's execute potential a bit better. But if you're playing CP Blackfeather, they're basically trying to say we're still giving you some route to CP execution with Faint of Heart. On point barrier increased because of the health changes. Health ratio again from the health changes, and Rose offensive again health changes. So again, a lot of the things when I say health changes, what I say is because health in general is going up by 50%. Most health-related abilities will also receive a slight buff to compensate as well. Massive nerf to this, and I think that's needed, absolutely needed, because of the changes to Pierce. But this won't feel so bad because essentially this was really good, because obviously armor and sort of armor and shielding, because of how good Pierce was, just meant that the 2 was necessary. Now that it's because of basically any resistances are going to get you a bit more weight than they would have done before. Resistances are worth more as an individual unit. This needed to happen, and I think Catherine will still be good because of Catherine's sort of echo. But it does mean that Catherine's going to be slightly less sort of contested, I think, on this update. This is just changes to health. This is basically, they're trying to make Flicker viable, but Flicker's never going to be realistically that viable just because of his kit. He's kind of like a snowball captain, doesn't really provide any utility in any sense, shape, or form. So whilst these changes are nice and they're going to make him a bit more durable, Flicker's not going to see that much play. Let's have a look. Damage decreased for Law of the Claw. So they're basically nerfing the sort of damage build from Fortress and trying to put him back more into the captain. And again, percentage damage needs to be nerfed in general because, again, you know, you've got more percentage health now, so higher percentage damage is going to be dealing percentage damage. Okay. This is just lifesteal decreased from that. Essentially, lifesteal is again getting a bit more sought after because the health value is going up. So this is going to make Glaive little less sought after, but I still think he's going to be pretty good. Again, just because the afterburn ability exists, that's going to make him good. Again, we're going to see Holy Shield damage reduction. That's a massive reduction because Grace wasn't the tankiest captain in the world. So yeah, I think this will, you'll definitely see a slight hit to Grace because that's an overall 12% nerf to her damage reduction. So definitely a biggish nerf to Grace there. And the heal's gone back up. The base heal's gone back up to compensate for the overall health. So that's not exactly a buff per se. What they're just saying is that because the overall health of heroes is going up, we're going to have to increase her health. So slight nerf to Grace overall. And I think needed nerf. We'll have to see. She's still a very good hero. Her Divine Intervention is always going to be sought after. But the overall damage reduction going down is pretty good. I like that. This is just damage reduction again. Just kind of removing it down because of the health going up. Not a huge nerf to Grumpjaw. He'll still be there. This is basically just some sort of utility changes to Gwen, so we're not going to touch on him too much. CP Idris nerf, definitely needed. I don't know if this is enough. I think you'll still see play of CP Idris. Some of the new items might favour him as well, so we'll have to see. But CP Idris, whilst he gets some nerfs to his overall ratios, we're still probably going to see a bit of CP Idris here and there. Jewel, she's going to be... her heroic perk hasn't changed. So that I don't know whether they've changed her heroic perk, but if her heroic perk hasn't changed, Jewel's going to be really tanky really early on. So I'd keep your eyes on Jewel. I think she could be really good this update. And this is just changes to the minions and also changes to health. Nerfing Cruel because, again, they're going to increase the barrier due to his... they're going to increase the barrier due to the overall need for increase on barriers because of the health values that have been changed. Essentially, everybody's getting a bit tankier, as you can see. Lifesteal damage down, so basically Cruel, a bit of a nerf. I think he got a little bit too strong on the last update, so a little bit of a nerf, and that's fine. I still think Cruel will see play. He's still got a very unique place with his weakness stacks. Lance, let's have a look. Impale damage going up, so again, flat damage in general is probably going to see a bit of an increase because the health of everybody has gone up as well. And again, this is just a bit of a nice buff to Weapon Power Lance specifically. Damage reduction, again, you're seeing a net damage reduction nerf across most people across the board. This is fine. Overall, this isn't too bad. Like 2% damage reduction change isn't too bad for Lance, and an overall damage increase is just going to mean that I think Lance is fine. Let's have a look at Lyra then. Range has gone up to 5.6, so again, going back to being a bit of a lane bully. Crystal ratio on Principal Arcanus, trying to bring CP Lyra back a little bit here, and they're increasing the healing as well, needed, I guess, simply because, again, everyone's health's going up. Because in general, you're going to find that unless the healing on people got buffed, then healing is going to be slightly less impactful because the healing values are staying the same, but everybody's health is going up. So healing in general is going to feel a little less impactful on this update. Ozo, increased healing, again, needs the increased healing because of the healing, the health changes. Fortified health goes up again. These are just random changes. Spontaneous combustion changes. Increased crystal ratio, healing, I guess that's only... I don't know if that's healing, crystal ratio on just the healing or crystal ratio on the healing and the damage, but in general, that is just, again, healing needs to go up for the health changes. Fortified health generation from 25% to 18%. Again, a lot of CP items are going to favor Rhyme in this current update. Winter Spire ratio, crystal ratio goes down. So a little bit of a nerf to Rhyme overall, but again, because everybody's getting slightly tankier, people like Rhyme are going to become pretty ridiculous if you don't tone them down a little bit. Let's have a look at Reza. His Scorcher lane minions, that's just a bit of a change there. Charge time decreased. I think that's important because the mobility was the main part of Reza's kit. Netherform Detonator. The trigger of Reza's standards. Blah, 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 blah. So a slight buff to Reza. I think this is important because, again, his mobility is important. So with some of the cooldown items, maybe you're going to see a very hyper-mobile Reza. I'll have to test him out, we'll see. And obviously, those fortified health changes because of the overall health changes. Overall health changes here. Let's have a look at this. Overall health changes here. Again, most of these changes are because of the health changes. And unless there's anything important. Execute damage decreased. Again, that's a little bit of a nerf to Saw. Whilst it sort of said nerfs overall, what you're seeing is because health in general is getting more, this kind of stuff, if it was higher percentages, would be really, really impactful. So again, it's just more of a change, and I think that's fine. Again, this is just some slight nerfs to Scarf I think were needed. He was in a really good place, so that's fine. Get rid of that. Let's have a look at Sky. Crystal ratio increased from 120% to 160%. They're basically reverting... They're going middle ground with Sky. So they're basically saying, we did the wrong thing. We're going to middle ground it, which is fine. And I think this is going to make Sky a bit easier to play again. It's not going to make her overpowered, but she's definitely going to be in a good, strong place. I think Sky, if you're good at Sky, again, you'll still be pretty good at Sky. healing changes, and healing changes. So just health changes, rather. Again, when you look at these, the overall net nerf to these items is because of the overall net nerf to pierce, and therefore you're going to have to give a corresponding change to the overall values. So we're going to skip over those values. Lifesteal is again going up, whilst this might look like a buff, because the overall health, if everybody's gone up, you have to give more flat health to people, otherwise they're not going to get the same percentage back, which is fine. Straight flat armor pierce, so you get 18% shred of the enemy armor. So Bonesaw again, very good against high armor targets. It hasn't really changed that much. This is the big change here. A lot of people said it on my contraption video. Cooldown's gone down from 40% to 30%, but the charges have gone up to 4. Again, guys, this is not going to totally replace your ability to buy flares, but it might replace your ability to buy scout traps. I still think it's a utility item, though. It's still a lot of gold to invest in something that is primarily vision when you can spend a little bit less and just buy the items outright. So again, contraption remains its same place in the meta, more of a utility item. Max health going up on most things because, again, the health changes. Echo's going over to utility, which I think is fair because, again, it was mainly used by captains, was very rarely picked up by CP carries. Interesting thing here, they've basically buffed, they've sort of buffed Fountain again. So this is needed because of the health changes once more. It might look like a buff to Fountain. They've basically reverted the cooldown, which was the biggest nerf they gave to it last update. And this is just meaning that it's giving more flat health per 1% missing life, which was needed because, again, the health changes. If you've learned anything from this video, guys, it's that the health changes have impacted a lot of items. And we'll have to see how that sort of rolls out on the current update. Cooldown speed. These are all just, again, they're nerfing cooldown in general, and again, they're cutting flat resistances because of the changes to pierce. Passive regeneration. Oh, that's an interesting one, because this is one of the most overpowered parts of Fountain in the first place. It was the fact that it was 2.5% missing health. This is actually going to mean that when captains take damage, they're going to have to think about taking damage a bit more readily because you're not going to regenerate it just like that. So this is a really interesting change, and it is definitely going to make captains a bit more wary about their positioning and how much damage they take in the early game. Blah, blah, blah. Interesting icon. That's supposed to be shield pierce, by the way, guys. Armor pierce. They're just the flat pierce again. Piercing in general has been nerfed. La la la. Upgrade cost, heavy steel and chronograph. Interesting, that's what I think it should have built out in the first place. When I predicted it, I was like, it's going to build out of heavy steel and chronograph, so I was like, yes. Upgrade cost decreased from 6, yeah, because that's to compensate for the changes there. Storm Crown. Damage to heroes up to 25%. For over 20% effectiveness against heroes, so I'm guessing that change has changed there. Cooldown speed's been hit pretty hard. But in general, I think Stormcrown's still fine. If you're bad at clearing the jungle, you're still going to need this item. Maybe just need the Stormguard banner, you'll have to see. Pretty decent nerf to Tension Bow, to be honest. I'll do some maths on it because I'm not quite sure in general, but yes. There you go. That was a long talk. That was a half-an-hour video on the update notes. But the TLDR, or the TL didn't watch, is heroes' health's going up, and also Pierce is getting nerfed, so therefore they're compensating by reducing Pierce on a lot of items and increasing health on a lot of items, because health is now the new defensive commodity. A lot of new CP items. I think they're very versatile. It means they're going to fit onto certain heroes well. There's been a couple of nerfs. A lot of the nerfs that you'll see in the update notes are because of those health changes and stuff like that. So they're not huge nerfs in general. And I think after we've seen a week of play on this current update, we'll have to see how the builds watch out. And I'll do a meta list probably next week. So hopefully this has been interesting. It's been a long talk. Maybe put this on in the background. And I will see you soon.